why Doofenshmirtz is better than every other cartoon dad. Walking.
Fox hops over the log, the rabbit crawls under the log. Okay, got it. Now to send and now to send my daughter to the movies.
Most people know Heinz Doofenshmirtz as that lab-coated wearing weirdo who usually gets his ass handed to him by a platypus. But once you stop looking at him as a villain and start looking at him as a father, you will discover a completely different version of Doofenshmirtz that changes the way you see him. This man survived a childhood that would honestly fuck anyone up. But Heinz, he actually dealt with his past trauma, properly raised a daughter, and even changed the trajectory of his entire life because of it.
It all began on the day of my actual birth. Both of my parents failed to show up.
If we're being honest, Doof had no right turning out as a functioning member of society, let alone a good
Hey, I gotta just say, this was one of the best shows, and I don't remember a whole lot about it. I'm still kind of young, but yeah, it was a fire show, and I always thought his part was like he's like the most emotional kind of character. He has a lot of stuff going on.
father.
Versus the other ones that are just kind of
Bloody
like
hell,
funny.
this man's backstory reads less like a cartoon and more like a checklist of how to mentally break a human being. He was born in Gimmelstump, and the very first thing that you need to know is that neither of his parents showed up to his own birth. Which, and I cannot stress this enough, takes a level of dedication to not giving a shit that's honestly a little bit impressive. And it only gets
Well, it's
worse
possible,
from here.
but,
His father forced him to stand in the garden pretending to be a lawn gnome. His only friend was a balloon that he eventually lost on gnome duty. He was disowned and raised by a pack of ocelots. He was replaced by a dog his father named Only Son. He had to throw his own birthday parties alone, and wasn't even allowed to touch his own bloody cake. His younger brother was the family's favourite, and Heinz couldn't catch a break before life had even properly started for him. You'd think with a childhood that fucked up, he'd be a proper menace, wanting nothing but destruction of the entire world. And yeah, he does want to take over the tri-state area, but his evil schemes are just a result of his shite childhood. We actually get a look at what a truly evil Doofenshmirtz looks like in the Across the Second Dimension movie. That version of Doof had a perfectly fine childhood, yet he became a terrifying dictator who enslaved his entire city, and all because he lost a toy train.
That's your emotionally scarring backstory? That's your great tragedy? Dude, I was raised by ocelots. I mean, literally, disowned by my parents and raised by Central American wildcats. And you're telling me you lost a toy train? That's all. That's all you got, really?
Alternate Doof could have lost a
Yeah, I mean, Doofenshmirtz was always kind of a good guy. No, he's not a good guy, He's kind of a villain, but like, he never actually did anything that bad. I mean, he was kind of
million
like,
toy trains and
dude,
still wouldn't
never
compare
really
to
did
the
nothing bad.
absolute hell
Wasn't
the
a bad-
original Doof went through. One train was enough to take him off the rails, while our Doof has endured things that would make most therapists quit their profession on the spot. And honestly, you've got to give the man some credit. The man has been through the absolute ringer, and he refused to let it define him. For a bloke who had every reason to be a complete nightmare, the fact he's even remotely kind says everything about his character. In the world of Heinz, favoritism was always the name of the game. First, he was sidelined for a dog, and then came Roger. Roger was the golden child who could do no wrong. He won their mother's love through kickball, of all things, while Heinz was left in the dirt. Fast forward a few decades, and it's clear that Heinz hasn't let it go. Roger is the mayor of Danville, and Heinz spends his time trying to conquer the city, or building some mental innator to ruin Roger's reputation. Usually, Perry the Platypus shows up to stop him before things get too out of hand. That kind of resentment usually rots a person from the inside out. It makes them bitter. But Doofenshmirtz never puts that pressure on his daughter Vanessa. He doesn't try to live through her or turn her into a weapon to settle a grudge that's been festering for 30 years. He realises that his own trauma is his own baggage to deal with. Not only that, he refuses to let that toxic family dynamic poison her life. That is a level of emotional maturity.
He's always been like kind of a good dude. He just wants revenge, He's really not
that
that
most
bad.
normal parents haven't even thought about. Speaking of parents, there's this common idea that the way you were parented is the way that you'll parent your own kids. Cycles of neglect and emotional unavailability pass down like a shitty family heirloom. But Doofenshmirtz decided to break that cycle. He grew up in a house where love just didn't exist. His parents used him as garden furniture and couldn't be asked to be present for his birth. He had every excuse to be a distant, cold father. Instead, he does everything in his power to support Vanessa. Is he perfect at it? No, of course he's not, but I mean, literally no one is. Look at her birthdays. This is a man who spent his childhood as a lawn gnome. Yet he tries his hardest to throw her a proper bash every single year. He might get the theme wrong or make it incredibly embarrassing, but he's actually trying. In the episode, Dude, We're Getting the Band Back Together, it's Vanessa's Sweet 16. Doofenshmirtz puts his rivalry with Perry on hold and asks for help setting up a party. The vibe is aggressively aimed at a 7-year-old because he's a bit out of touch, but his heart's in it. Even Perry can see that this is a bloke who loves his kid. But it does end with Perry getting strapped to a giant firecracker, and by some miracle of chaos and fireworks, and a running battle that completely wrecks the venue, the place ends up as a gothic wreck, one that her friends absolutely love. And Vanessa thanks him for getting one birthday right for her, even when she expressed how she didn't enjoy the kind of parties he's been throwing for her. Doof literally never went on about how kids these days have it easier, or bring up the back in my day talk.
She doesn't like the party. I can't believe I failed again. Well, at least I can watch you explode.
Then there's the Finding Mary MacGuffin episode, where Vanessa was 7. She wanted a Mary MacGuffin doll. Doof spent the next 10 years relentlessly searching for
Yeah, I mean, he was always like a good dude, especially to her. Like, I can't really think of a single time where he actually did something like super bad to try to get like revenge or things like that. He really did like nothing that bad that I remember at least. Just like a good dad, you know.
toy long after
really,
Vanessa had forgotten
never
about
killed
it.
anybody.
When he
Never
finally
done stuff
finds
like
one
that.
at a yard sale, he doesn't hesitate for a second. He drives straight to his ex-wife's house and presents it to her. To him, that was the most important thing he had to do all year. In the episode Skiddly Whiffers, he shows that he can
Skiddly
actually
Whiffers.
respect boundaries too. Vanessa wants to go camping with her friends like a normal teenager, and her dad tags along, disguised as a nature survivor.
Kind of off topic, but I remember there was like one episode where they were like building like a water park or something in their backyard. I remember it was kind of like a weird episode because like the sister knew about it, tried to get them outside, they just didn't know about it. No, I think it was the one where they actually found out. Like the parents actually saw what they were doing, something like that. It was like a weird episode. I can't remember it too well, but it might have been the last episode or something.
Survival expert, and proceeds to inspect every inch of the camp
Yeah, so the
for
parents finally
potential
found out
hazards.
what Denise and
Once
Ferb were
again,
doing.
he asks Perry for help,
Weird
but
episode.
Vanessa figures out what he's doing and tells him to back off. Even he realizes he's overstepping and stops.
But Vanessa, what if there were a blizzard or an earthquake and you with no one to take care of you, not even kindly ocelots like I had?
Dad,
I could be at that campsite right over.
go home.
Okay, Pumpkin. Stay safe.
Later, Vanessa and her friends are approached by a swarm of bees. So Doof covers himself in honey, gets the bees' attention, and dives into a lake. Like which cartoon father would be willing to sacrifice himself like that? Can you imagine Peter Griffin doing that? Peter would
Oh,
probably
nah.
throw more bees at his kid.
Yeah, but he would literally just like start kicking her in the head trying to grab the beat. Do
It's
something
just
crazy.
for a laugh.
Is this about Meg's cervical cancer?
What?
you always fall for that.
Anyways, a lot of the cartoon dad tropes usually follow a 9-to-5 blue-collar worker who at some point in their life struggles to make some time for their children. But unlike that, Doofenshmirtz is never too busy with an innator or some other evil plan to spend time with his daughter. And when they do spend time together, he wants every moment to be a learning experience for her. He even goes as far as referring his whole evil scientist gig as a family business. Summer Belongs to You is a perfect example. He takes her on a father-daughter trip to Tokyo, which happened to be the location of the annual Good Guy convention. Of course, he also kidnapped Major Monogram, which is obviously illegal, and planned to drop a giant water balloon on the convention, which upsets Vanessa. Which is fair. I mean, vacations are supposed to be times not to pay attention to work. When Perry arrives, Doof even considered going ahead with his plan on the spot so he could get back to spending time with his daughter.
Vanessa, wait! You have all the traveler's checks.
Traveler's checks? Really?
Did I say traveler's? No, I do want to spend time with... Look. I'll drop the water balloon right now and we'll get
For someone who's a villain, you'd think he'd want to go with his plan as slow and as dramatic as possible, but he was more than willing to just get it over with, just so he could get back to spending time with his kid. But of course, things go wrong, and Vanessa ends up accidentally joining Phineas and Ferb's around the world trip. The moment Doof realises she's missing, he immediately abandons his evil plans and teams up with Major Monogram and Perry to find her. So, they travel halfway across the planet and eventually find her in Paris. However, Doof gets arrested by the end of it, and we see how much she cares about him too. If Vanessa didn't really care, she'd have let the OWCA take her father away. But no, she pulls out a weapon, or rather a hairdryer that she made them believe is a weapon, and takes off with her father in Perry's hovercar. And he's never been prouder of anything in his entire life.
So that means you're a little evil.
Okay, Dad, maybe I'm a little evil.
I knew it. It's okay. I'm not gonna cry.
Dad.
At some point, his ex-wife Charlene
Yo, like,
always
this was such a good show. The plot was so good. Like, even now I'm getting invested.
said that no one can be truly evil, and that fits Hines perfectly. When it comes to his evil plans, some would say they're terrible, like spectacularly rubbish, but not just in the sense that they fail every single time, but in the sense that they just make no sense most of the time. Usually, his plans are along the lines of making all the milk in the tri-state area go bad, or reversing the rotation of the Earth.
Yeah, he never really has that big of idea. Well, they're big of ideas, but he always has, like, strange. It's not just like, oh, let's kill everybody. Or, like, something like that. Or, like, make a death ray. Some crazy thing. He always has, like, a weird idea.
So he doesn't have to say good morning again. He wanted to make everyone have the same jingle stuck in their heads at one point. Yeah, this actually happened. Even when he's trying to be a villain, he can't help being a decent person. In Spa Day, he takes in a cute kitten he finds outside of his building and names it Mr. Fluffy Pants. The kitten wreaks absolute havoc with all of his equipment and leads him to nearly falling off the building. But when the owner shows up, Doof gives the cat back because it's the right thing to do. He's pissed off about it, but I mean, he does it anyway.
My cat! I've been looking all over for him.
I'm going to have to do the right thing here, aren't I? Fine. Here you go.
His relationship with his ex-wife Charlene is also worth a mention here. Let's be real for a second. A
Charlene. I remember this.
good number of
Yeah, an
cartoon
ex-wife
families are
Charlene.
married, and they're a complete train wreck. Hines and Charlene are divorced, and they still have the most functional co-parenting dynamic on television.
Wow, I did not remember him having an ex-wife named Charlene. That's crazy.
They split because they wanted different things in life, with the tipping point being a hand puppet Doof had. But despite this, the two of them communicate well, co-parent without visible hostility, and manage to maintain something resembling a functioning relationship, even after the marriage ended. For a man with zero models of healthy adult relationships growing up, that is no small feat. There's no bitterness, or using Vanessa as a pawn in a legal battle, or the usual "your mother is a nightmare" talk. Instead, he takes his role as a father seriously, and doesn't see Vanessa as a burden in any way. And he treats his ex with respect. He's someone who has every reason to be a bitter, lonely shell of a man. But instead, he's a
He's a good
supportive
dude.
ex-husband and a devoted dad. It's honestly a refreshing change from the usual
How much was it left?
nagging wife
Why haven't I
or
even talking all
deadbeat
that much?
dad
I've been
tropes
so
that we're
locked in
used
this
to.
video.
For the entire run of the show, Doofenshmirtz always had one goal, and that was to take over the tri-state area. It's the sole reason why he started his endeavour as a villain, and might well be in every single monologue he's ever given. And in the season 4 finale, Last Day of Summer, he finally achieves that. So Doof becomes too busy with work to talk with his daughter for the first time ever, but he eventually becomes the ruler of the tri-state area by becoming its tri-governor. After realising that such a position doesn't exist, Doof creates the Tri-Governorinator, along with the Do-Overinator, and makes himself one, which at the same time creates some rifts in time and space, and it becomes its own problem entirely. But anyway, he's finally victorious after an entire show's worth of trying. Then he finally talks with Vanessa, who reveals she got accepted into an internship at the OWCA. But the problem is, they won't take an intern who lives with one of their enemies, which meant she'd have to move in with her mum. That's pretty rough. So when she finally gets the chance to speak with her dad, she doesn't just tell him about the internship. She tells him the truth, that he's not evil because he wants to be evil. He's evil because he was raised in an environment where love and approval were completely absent. And somewhere along the way, he decided that being the villain of the story was better than being nobody at all. And in her words, he's basically just a nice guy pretending to be evil. So in the end, she tells him to turn over a new leaf.
You're basically a nice guy who's pretending to be evil. It seems like it's all out of obligation to your backstories, not something that truly comes from your heart.
Despite everything he's been through, Doof only ever became a sort of bad guy. Again, look at the other version of him, who became a monster over a toy train, which is nothing compared to our Heinz, who gives up on his single life's goal, takes his daughter's advice and tries saving the world instead. Of course, he's not the best at it, but the fact that he's willing to improve and become a better man speaks volumes. To be honest, Heinz had every reason to be a monster, but he chose to be a father, using his trauma as a guide for what not to do.
It's really true though. He's just a good guy, pretending to be a bad guy. And yeah, that's really it. You know, you don't really do nothing bad. Just kind of weird shit.
To listen and to be the best man he could ever be when it came to Vanessa. A past like this would break most people, but Doof is just one of those few examples where he actually became stronger thanks to the horrible past that he's been through. If you enjoyed this deep dive...
That was a good video. I was locked in that whole time. I'm not sure if I talked a whole bunch during that. I was trying to, but I was so locked into that. That was a good video. If we have one video left, might do a few more after this.